I'm Kevin Allen from HockeyBuzz.
And I'm Karen from HockeyBuzz, writing about the Habs and all excited about the draft tomorrow. Woo.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world today with Les, Mike, and Russ. They are both, as we speak, like 12 minutes away from Montreal, you said, Karen?
No, Mike is 90 minutes away from Montreal. So
okay, 90
an
minutes
hour
away.
and a half.
There you go. Yeah, so they are speeding their way through the Canadian countryside and interpreting as best they can where they can get food in their French world. And they're on their way. And yes, we'll be talking to them tomorrow morning. We'll be doing a show tomorrow morning earlier. So stay tuned for that because the draft is tomorrow night, of course, and we have to get into the draft. We have so many rumors to talk about and so many different things. So now that we're finally like going technically, we're going to get started here. And I got to start off with this, Karen, because it's like we are hearing all sorts of things. And I talked to Kevin briefly, and we're hearing different things about this. But who the hell is Montreal taking with the first pick overall in this draft? It's really crazy.
Are you asking me what I think?
I'm asking you what you think.
I'm thinking it's got to be Shane Wright, mainly because he's a center, and they've been longing for a center for so long that I can't see them passing up on him. However, what I'm hearing a lot around Montreal is that it could be Slavkovsky, and I hope it's not. That would annoy the hell out of me. It really would.
Montreal doesn't have a history of this, that picking the wrong player when they've had first pick overall, do they? I can't remember a time.
Well, let's just say that
wasn't there like a Denny Savard issue or something like that?
Yeah, small snafu, no big deal. Yeah, but it's not gone well either lately. I mean, picking KK third overall didn't exactly work out well either. So yeah, got to do it well this time. For the love of God, please.
I mean, it is crazy, Kev. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I'm hearing the same things. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about what they're going to do, but I think they're kind of playing with everyone a little bit and just to see what would create. Plus, I completely agree with Karen in terms of, how do you pass up on a right shot defenseman who's been compared to right shot center? I'm sorry, who's been compared to Patrice Bergeron? Those players don't come around very often, and right shot centers are rare. So,
I'm hoping that Bergeron connection as well works with Hughes because he knows the value of a guy like that. I mean, he can't pass up on him, can he? Please, please.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you can't really go wrong though, because Slavkovsky, he's already played against men twice and did very well at the Olympics and World Championships. So.
But he's playing in Finland as well, and is used to big ice, not smaller surface. And whenever, that doesn't always translate very well when they come over to North America after that. So.
Now they're comparing him to Yager, right? So this is like that's like he's the Yager, or like the mini Yager. If the mini Bergeron is Shane Wright, the mini Yager is Slavkovsky, right? So
I've heard Rantanen for
Rantanen. Okay,
yeah,
okay. There you go. Is it me, or did I hear that he trained with Yager? Is that maybe what I'm hearing about? Like Yager worked with him. I thought there's some kind of Yager connection. I'll try to figure that out. But I asked the hockey world on Twitter this morning who they think the Montreal Canadiens should take with their first overall pick. Just as a tweet poll, and 1,000 votes, which is usually a pretty good sample. It's only been out there for a little more than an hour, but 76% say they should take Wright. So there's a definite feeling among at least hockey fans that Shane Wright is a safe pick. And I think in Montreal, am I right, Karen, saying that the safe pick is probably the best way to go?
You would think so, but then again, I mean, when they did appoint Kent Hughes, he was saying that, he's the kind of guy who can think outside the box and all that. So I'm just hoping he stays in the box this time. I've got nothing against hiring Martin Saint-Louis as a head coach at the left field, but please stay in the box for this one and go for Shane Wright. We'll see.
I mean, this is I mean, he's been the guy forever, and we've seen before, right, Kevin? Like where a guy at the last minute kind of makes this push, like Slavkovsky is, like suddenly.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only reason why this is happening is just the fact that he performed well on the Olympic stage, and that's it's so much bigger than our world, and he's got size. Whenever there's a player with size and offensive ability, and I think there's always even though Wright is not small, he's not big either. So
right.
So anyway.
What do you make of Slafkovsky's number in La Liga, though? I mean, if you compare to other players that have been there before him, 10 points in 31 games isn't great.
Yeah, but in Europe, they tend not to play younger players. I mean, that's really, we see that a lot. Detroit takes a lot of Swedes, and their numbers are always poor because they're 17 and 18. We followed this year. I watched closely Niederbach, who was their second round pick. Right. He was playing like 4 minutes a game, and Steve Eisenman, we interviewed him yesterday, and he was talking about how he went over to see Lucas Raymond in his draft year. And the first time he flew all the way over there, he played 3 shifts. The second time he flew over there, he was a healthy scratch. That's pretty consistent on European teams. You got to earn your spot. And, the fact that once he got over and the fact that they took him to play in the Olympics, once he got against men, he looked, he was one of their better players. I think that says a lot. And, I don't think there's any doubt that Slafkovsky can play, but I'm just always going to take the center. You want a scoring winger, you want guys with size, but a right shot scoring center, I'm going to take him first. So
it's really true, right? I never really thought about. You always think we always talk about the right shot defenseman, of course. That's always the big thing, but I never really think about the right shot center. You're right about that, though, especially for faceoffs and situations like that. Like one of the reasons that Giroux is so important to people is that he's a right shot center, which is a rare thing, that you don't see very often, like you said, and he brings that into the world too. All right, so let's assume that everything's going to go fine. They're going to take Wright. It's all going to be good. The people, there won't be rioting in the streets on down St. Catherine. St. Catherine will be a fine place to go out tomorrow night after this all happens. That's just the beginning for Montreal. Obviously, this is just one part of the whole thing. And somebody brought up to me today. I was talking to a guy who's on let's say he's on the Trade Central panel when we watched the trade deadline on show on TSN, and he said to me, he said, "Listen, another small secret good thing about Wright is that you can send him back and not play him this year, and if you do that, you've got a good chance at the other Connor coming next year." Which is that gives you a chance at at the big score, which is next year's first round pick, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know that the organization has said that they want to be more competitive this year than they were last year. So, and Kent Hughes also said yesterday that if he was yesterday or the day before. Anyway, I think he did say that Wright would get a shot in the NHL if he picks him. So we'll see, because, getting a shot can mean just, doing the 7 or 8 games and then being sent back. I really don't think they should rush his development if they do pick him. But
does he have anything else he can do, though, in juniors, Kevin? I mean, is there anything else for him to do?
I think you got to keep him.
That's the thing, right?
I just don't see that would be a big help for him. He seemed bored this year, to be honest with you. I mean, one of the criticisms of this year is that he wasn't as good this year, but I think he was already in the NHL mentally, and he was ready to go. So I just don't see sending him back. You just got to bring him in. I mean, it's not like they're going to set the world on fire their first year. Just think back to Steven Stamkos, his struggles in his first year. He ended up getting benched, and it wasn't until they changed coaches that he sort of figured out that you got to sort of treat younger players sort of like apprentices, where like if you have a first year lawyer, you don't give them the case right away. They're the second chair, and they sort of learn as they go. But with hockey players, or athletes, we tend to just throw them into the fire. And finally, what they did with Stamkos back then is they would let him play for like 3 games, then he would get a game off, and then that day he would get in the weight room. And I remember him telling me that he added, in that system, he added like 10 or 15 pounds of just pure muscle. Because unlike other players, because you're playing so often, there's no time to get in the weight room. Right. He was able to get in the weight room because they were giving him a game off here and there.
You can imagine his mentality, Kev, like a guy like that who just has never been scratched from a game ever. Like he's sitting there and he said, I've played in, I played in every game I can possibly play. And told he's scratched, he's going to the weight room with like a chip on his shoulder too. Like he's going in there to try to prove somebody wrong.
Yeah, and it was really a good system. I believe it was. Didn't Rick Tocchet? I think Rick Tocchet replaced Melrose, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway,
yeah, I think you're right.
In addition to putting him in the weight room on days when he was a healthy scratch, he was also required to watch the game up in the press box. And then the next day, an assistant coach sat down with him and asked him what he saw.
Wow.
And they would discuss that. And it was all part of Tocchet's plan in order to sort of assimilate him, to life in the NHL. And, Stamkos told me, I mean, this was years ago, obviously, that he thought it was really a helpful way to do it. Like, he was playing regularly, 3 out of 4 games or whatever it was. But he also had time to kind of think about what he was doing, because I think sometimes rookies get in there and they just react, which is okay for the season.
Yeah.
But after the season, they still don't know what they don't know because they haven't thought about it, So
right.
See, I'm not sure that could work though. Say they pick right and they want to do that. Problem with Montreal is that they're really thin at center. They don't have that many guys that can actually play properly. So send right up to the press box to watch what the guys are doing, and you're like, yeah, that's not what they should be doing.
Well, it's. I don't think you're supposed to learn necessarily from what they're doing, but maybe from what they're not doing. And that's why you have the meeting, the assistant coach. So, I mean, I don't know that that's the perfect way to deal with it, but I mean, I think you can't just throw them in and say, learn.
Yeah.
There has to be some sort of plan,
right,
on how to bring him in and, what he's going to do and what they're going to ask of him and that kind of thing. Because some guys do have a hard time trying to figure it all out. So,
Montreal is not the great history of developing players, but I'm hoping that's going to change with the new management. To be honest,
I mean, they do in their entire history, but not recently, right? Like, so they I mean, in their entirety of it. I just heard an interesting thing the other day that I didn't realize, that the Montreal Maroons, the other team that was in Montreal for a brief period of time, right? They in the NHL were put in there to be the English speaking hockey team. Like I didn't realize that was the case. Other people probably know that, but that the Canadians had like so taken over the French world of Montreal, and they felt like the English fans had no team. That and and of course the Montreal Maroons didn't last very long at all. But the concept is, or did they last a while? Were they around for a while, Kevin? Or
they were around long enough. Yeah, they were
right. They were. Okay.
They've got NHL history and everything else. Did you learn that from your 4th of July cook?
Yes, I did actually. Funny.
Yeah, I would have guessed that.
So. There you go. So that is who I learned that from exactly. All right, so let's start talking. And I think today also, since it's just us, if you guys want to throw anything in the chat room, a question for Kevin or me or Karen, feel free to throw it in there. I'm going to go through some stuff on the rumor chart today because we're getting there, and I think we're going to see some trades come down in the next couple days for sure. Every time we always hear like this is going to be busy. Kevin, what's your ranking on this as far as trades go? How many trades are we going to see?
Oh, I think we will see. Usually we get like 2. I think we might see 3 or 4. So we might double.
We double it. Okay.
Are we counting the ones that are going to happen before? We might get one today.
I think at this point we're in the draft. Like to me, to me at this point we're there.
I think so. I mean, you hear that Bull Jarvie is starting to heat up a little bit. Yeah. I think there's some other players that could get moved as well.
JT Miller could get moved today. That's the one if I was to guess.
Yeah, that might be too much. But this is the reason why I think we might get at least 1 or 2 more than usual. Is that for some reason we've got teams with multiple draft picks, and with some of those teams with multiple draft picks have a lot of cap space, and there could be some movement of draft picks here as well. So, and in order to make that happen, you got to make the trades before the draft. So that's why I think we might see some. Right,
that's interesting. All right, all right, here's a good one. We'll throw this question out here for a second here. For Kevin. So Frank Cervelli reported that the Blues are listening on Krug and Tarasenko. What does Kevin think of Krug to the Islanders? Lou wants some puck moving D-man to pair with Dobson.
Yeah, I think that's certainly going to be in his wheelhouse, Lou's wheelhouse as well. I mean, he does like offensive defensemen. That's been his history, and I think he'll look at that. And he also, at this stage, he wants some cost certainty. So, Krug's locked in, which is, probably what he's looking for. So I think that makes some sense. There's no doubt they're going to get a blue chip defenseman. I don't know whether it'll be Krug or Brent Burns or whoever, but they're going to get one for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a good one for me, and I've opened up panel as well. From Randy out there. Does Goudreau's rights get traded today? What do you think?
Wow.
Kev?
Yeah. You just don't get enough for those rights. I don't even know that I would even worry about it. If I was a GM and I was losing a player, I'm not going to worry about getting a third round pick. I mean, you got to do it just because it is a pick, but
yeah,
it's not like I'm going, well, I dodged a bullet because I got a third round pick, out of his rights. Because, if you don't get Goudreau signed, that is a management failure in my opinion.
I do agree. And I think at this point, I feel like, and I think I even put this on the chart. Yeah, I have them at 30%. Calgary is the favorite at 30%, which is not a strong favorite, but I just feel like they're gonna get something done with this. Like I don't know. It feels like there's really no better place for Johnny to play. Like honestly, like he's got the line right. He's got the situation. Everything's perfect for him there. I mean, he showed it this year with an incredible year. Right. I mean, where else?
But the fans were kind of hard on him, don't you think, Heck? I mean,
they were hard on him. Yeah. Until this year. And this year, I think they definitely turned, of course, with all the production. But, he has long been talked about wanting to be on, like, he's an East Coast kid, wanting to be back on the East Coast. That's always been mentioned, I think, more by people than him. Like, I haven't heard him say it very often, that he's him saying that he wants to be on the East Coast, but just people around him seem to say he wants to be on the East Coast. But rights trades are, we don't see them usually at the draft. I remember a couple. I remember one. Who was it? I forget. There was it Kevin Bieksa that his rights got traded like 3 times. One year, like they got traded from team to team to team.
Yeah, everybody took their run. Yeah,
and one of them was at the draft. I remember
when a team fails after the executing one of those trades, they weren't cheating. They hadn't called
right.
They hadn't called up and said, would you be interested? Because some of them have been shocked. They've gotten the rights and all of a sudden the agent says, we don't want to talk to you. We don't even want to go there.
Right. That's I mean, and it seems like there are so many ways to cheat now that rights, I mean, the only thing about the rights that the big advantage about the rights is that you can put that extra year in there. Correct. So that's if you get the rights, you can give an extra year.
Yeah. But we're not inclined in this time period with the flat cap to give those kind of deals.
Right.
And the players want them less and less as well. There's a lot of younger players who want to sign like 3 or 4 years deal, and they don't want to be tied up for 8 years. They want to break the bank in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, not in a flat cap era. You want to see what's going to happen here. So so I don't know, but it just feels. I mean, it really does seem like a lovely parting gift. You know what I mean? You get it. You just get as you're walking out the door, they give you a little box and you get a keychain. You know what I mean? So the team gets the 3rd round pick. A year
supply of turtle wax.
I mean, it just I don't get it, and I don't. I just hate to even write about them. It seems silly. You failed in management. You didn't get the player. You didn't trade them for whatever reason. Right. And so now you sell to fans, hey, look, we got a 3rd round pick. Well, good for you.
Right. Yeah, that's really it is not a great it is like opening up, a box at Christmas that you think is a toy and it's really a sweater. It's like
yeah.
It's not what you want. It's definitely not where you're going there. Here's another one for Kevin. This is an interesting one. Andrew Kopp, we talked about him a little bit earlier, Kev. Are the Wings interested in him?
Well, they would be for sure. I keep hearing that he's signed, sealed, and delivered to the Rangers. He liked it there. He liked his fit there. They really liked him. Although you keep hearing that the Rangers will be in on, JT Miller trade and a lot of things. So how can they do all that? Because they had a lot of cap space, when they acquired him, but now they don't. They're tight as well. So
right.
I don't know what to make of that. I thought all along that the Red Wings were going hard after Koppa. When his family came in to see him play, when he came in Detroit prior to the deal to the Rangers, it was the first time they had actually seen him in Detroit because it hadn't worked out where he had actually played there. And he's a Michigan kid, and his family's still here, and it seemed like a pretty large group of friends and family. So I thought there was a chance the Red Wings might get him. I thought the Red Wings might be interested in Miller as well because they really would like a center.
Yeah. It seems, and Cobbs is everybody I've talked to about him, just nothing but glowing things to say about him. And also just as a person, as an intelligent guy, as one of the smarter hockey people, as like somebody who, like along the lines of Yzerman could be a GM someday, feels like that's what people say about him. And, Winnipeg hated losing him. And I know that I talked to a couple of Winnipeg reporters, and they especially hated losing him. He was like, he was the best guy to go to in Winnipeg.
Well, the other factor here in Detroit is, and this is interesting, and I bet Karen could speak to this from the Montreal angle as well. There's always a lot of emphasis placed on when he's from the area or whatever. And I've always thought that's been kind of overrated. Most of the players I've talked to, are more interested in their fit with an organization, whether or not they're going home. However, the Red Wings have always been like that. They really haven't cared much whether they got Michigan people. But Dylan Larkin has kind of changed all that. Like they understand the benefit now of having somebody like Dylan Larkin who grew up, watching the Red Wings and has an affinity for their tradition. And, he's got a large collection of friends. He went to the University of Michigan. And all of a sudden, I think they understand the benefits of that. Like the fan base sees him as he's one of us, and I think they see that. So saying all that, I think suddenly they've gotten a little more interested in like Michigan players. And there are a lot of them. And a lot of them are good players.
That's one way to see it. I think you get that quite a lot in Montreal as well, especially from the press. As soon as a French Canadian is like on the market, the press links him every single time to Canadians.
Right.
But I'm not sure it's a good thing in Montreal. I know you say that the fans are like, he's one of us. In Montreal, what happens is that they seem to judge the French Canadian players in a much more harsh way than they do anyone else who's from anywhere else. I mean, they always end up being the scapegoat. I mean, you can remember Patrice Brisebois some years ago who was booed every time he touched the puck. And it's like, the guy wasn't terrible defenseman, was he? And then they brought on Jonathan Drouin. Okay, he didn't pan out. He didn't, work out to be a center like they hoped he would.
Right.
But, he can play, fairly well. He's not a superstar, but he's playing well. And yet every time he's playing, people are just, bashing at him. Yeah. Personally, I don't see bringing French Canadians on the Montreal Canadiens as a good idea. I really don't, because expectations always end up being too high, and then just goes to show how intense the Montreal market is, and it does more damage than good, if you ask me. But
it's interesting. It's an interesting twist. I've heard both, Minnesota. I talked to people in Minnesota. They love their Minnesota players out there too.
They do. Yeah.
And, and that's worked out pretty well. I mean, Student Parise wanting to go there. People who wanted to play. I mean, you'd think as a kid growing up as a hockey player, if you were watching the Red Wings growing up, what a dream, like what a dream it is for him to go and do this, just like for Larkin to pull on that sweater and be the potential captain or whatever of that team, just is an amazing, amazing journey. And I can see why the fans in an era of free agency where, guys are only there because they're making money, or are they really invested in this team? Larkin's a fan of that team. That's his team. And in Montreal, though, they have, of course, the history, right, of the fact that they were allowed all the French Canadian players for a long time. And that they had
a long time ago, though.
A long time ago, but I still think that that does infiltrate the world up there. I still think that they feel like that every French Canadian should play here at some point, or, No. I've talked to people, Karen. I've talked to people like two people I talked to about that, LeCavier and Simone Gagne. When they were in Philly, I talked to both of them about going to Montreal, and both of them had the same kind of feeling about it. That they were they did not want to be the good French Canadian guy in the locker room that all the press went to right away. That was like they just did not want to be that guy.
That
like
makes sense, and that's probably one of the reasons that Dano bolted away in free agency as well. You could tell in the last year that he was fed up with being the spokesperson, especially when Jonathan Drouin had to take a step back and leave the team. I mean, every single reporter just went straight to Dano and asked him loads and loads of questions, which are, really unfair for him to have to answer. And I can see that being too much eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting. Dano's a real interesting one, right? Because he was good in Montreal, and then he was really good in the playoffs, and now he's great where he is in LA. People are considering him like the best free agent signing of last year, right?
It's amazing, really, that because you're right about that. Like he was even better in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Well, he was because they used him in a more offensive role, whereas in Montreal it was like, yeah, you're the defensive guy. You need to, check the other team's big players more than anything else. And they were telling him that eventually his role was essentially to mentor Suzuki, but that Suzuki would be the offensive guy. And that really annoyed Dano, I think, because he was like, I've got more to give than just this.
Well, that was the recruiting pitch to him, and they followed through on it.
So. Right. Then they did, and he was. It turned out to be one of the best signings of the offseason. And
hilariously enough, Marc Bergevin is now in LA with Dano. Look how that worked out.
Right.
Although, does anybody really know what an advisor does? I mean, it's almost, it's just. When one of the brethren loses their job, okay, whose turn is it to bring the guy in? It's kind of like, you take somebody in.
I don't know what they actually do, but in a French Canadian TV show, Dano said he wasn't really thrilled when he heard that Bergevin was coming to LA. He did say that on live TV. I was like, okay.
But I mean, it's entirely possible that he will never lay eyes on Mark this time he's there. Like, you don't see them. They're not sitting around in the press box. And, so, I mean, there's a lot of former GMs floating around in the league that you don't even know are working for teams. So.
Right. All right. We had somebody ask this in the chat room. I'm not sure who it is. I apologize, but it has something we have to get into, unfortunately. And we're going to get into it without Mike. So I feel bad, but we got to talk about, they asked about the Toronto Maple Leafs goaltending situation, which really is like the elephant in the room in the province of Ontario, because now we're all hearing Edmonton is really solid on Campbell. It feels like how the last several UFA days at noon, all the things happened that we thought that we were told were going to happen. How that's been. We really have like very little unpredictability about the UFA day lately. It's just like this guy's going to go here, this guy's going to go here, this guy's going to go here, because there's so little money and everything has to line up right. It sort of logically can figure out the dominoes as they play. Campbell to Edmonton seems like one of those things now. It feels like it's a done deal. Yeah,
I'm not sure it's, close to being a done deal, but I know what you're saying. I mean, that's, there's a drumbeat for it that you hear. Yeah. And the problem is they don't want to pay the elephant $5 million.
In Toronto.
And Toronto doesn't. And I don't know. That doesn't seem unrealistic to me. I mean, it's just what you pay for a starting goalie, and you're also paying for Toronto. Being goalie in Toronto is like being quarterback in Green Bay, or
right.
Or point guard for the LA Lakers.
No, exactly.
It comes with pressure, and I think that it should be like a $5 million job. But saying all that, I mean, I understand that they're not completely sold on him, but I think that's okay. Right. But I don't like their options. I mean, if you look around, like where do they go? Like, if you believe Fleury is not going to go to Toronto, if I had to bet, I mean, I don't know, but I would bet he's going to play with Minnesota again.
I think so too.
I mean, he had a good time. He liked it. He's a loyal guy. He's not going back to Chicago, but I don't see him wanting to go to Toronto. And, that's not him, having to deal with, 46 media members, because they do those interviews one at a time there.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't see that happening. So if you're not going to Fleury, where, pray tell, are you going? I don't believe that the Ducks are going to trade John Gibson. Plus, you're not going to like the price, even if they do. Pat Verbeek is not giving him away.
Oh, for sure.
So I just don't think that's even realistic. So now what I think Kemper is going to re-sign in Colorado.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know where they're going.
I mean, is it like Hossa, or I mean but that seems like, I mean, why would you go with that over Campbell? He's going to be $5 million too. Like any starting goalie who's coming to Toronto is going to be $5 million. I can't see that that's not the case, right? Like, I can't see them getting an under $5 million goalie. And why would you do that we've talked about this at length, but why would you do that if you're one of the top teams in the league? Why would you do that? Like, why would you go for that move? I'm
with you. I don't understand why the Blackhawks are trading the Brincat. I don't understand why Toronto is just giving up on Campbell. There's a lot of things I don't understand this year.
Yeah. I mean, and I was a rumor last week that came out. I posted it. It's just a rumor. Like I said, I didn't buy into it making a whole lot of sense. I couldn't logically figure it out, but I was told it by somebody who I trust, so I put it out there that the Leafs had interest in Jonathan Quick, and getting him out of, and maybe. So to me, the only thing that would make sense right now is if they have some other plan. Like if they have, because like you say, what are the options? So if you're not bringing in Campbell in, what is the other plan? And if you have the other plan, if you can trade Nylander for Jonathan Quick, for example, is that what you're thinking of? Is that where you're going?
Well, if they traded Nylander for Quick, I think there would be general managers around the league that would just be in a huff about, because they would pay more than Jonathan Quick for Nylander, I'm pretty sure. So,
right. That's probably true, right?
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Quick's not a bad option, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, he's won a cup, multiple cups. He's coming off a good year. Can you say he was better last year than Campbell? Yeah, he might have been. I mean, Campbell was good early and good late. So
how old is Quick now? I mean, Toronto's
106.
Yeah, 106. Yeah, Toronto's down to be looking for a long-term solution. Someone to finally bring some stability in their crease. I mean, they're gonna go for someone.
But in goalie years, he's
in goalie years.
Yeah, he's better. I mean, he's better. Yeah, and I mean, he definitely last year looked like he had found the fountain of youth. I mean, he was. I think what we saw with Quick was that he, I think, has a little bit of what Fleury has in him, in that if you put them on a team that is competing, their game picks up a lot. Like Quick's game picked up a lot when the Kings got better, when the Kings were suddenly in the playoffs hunt, and they were and then when the Kings were actually in the playoffs, Quick was the Quick we'd always seen. But when the Kings were terrible before that, Quick struggled, right? Like mightily, and we've seen the same kind of thing with Fleury to a degree at different times. So I think that But yeah, so that's an option. Maybe Quick's an option, but if they don't get him, I guess it's Mrazek or bust. Huh?
I'm going to play the role of Mike Agello today and look up the stats on the phone. So he was 23 and 13-9 last year with a 2.59 and a 9.10. So 9.10 puts him just above average in terms of save percentage last year. He had I would consider a decent year. So.
Yeah,
and he is 36 years old, which is 106 in years.
He's got 1 year remaining on his contract as well, only. 1 year.
Yeah, and that's desirable. Like if you want to take a roll of the dice, that's not bad.
Yeah, but you don't want to give up Nylander for that.
You don't want to. Well, no, you don't. I don't even think that would even be a possibility that they could get Nylander in that deal, but.
But what options? We talk about Toronto's options, Kevin. I mean, like you could say yes, but they actually have a chance. They actually have. If you're going to talk about a goalie who's better than Campbell out there, who else are they going to trade for?
No, I mean it's not good. I don't like the position they put themselves in. But let me throw this back the other way. What we have is the LA Kings announced to the world, we're going to go for it. We're going to give up some attractive assets, a first-round pick, and Brock Faber, who's a pretty good defensive prospect, to get Kevin Fiala. And then we're going to give him just a ton of money because we believe now we can compete. And now we're hearing that if Philip Forsberg does not re-sign in Nashville, they're going to make a run at him.
Right.
You know, because he knows Arvidsson, he knows Fiala, all that kind of stuff. So now, would they want to trade Quick now? Because, you know, they got Cal Peterson, but, you know, Quick turned up, you know, was the better goalie last year, in my opinion.
Right. He was. And Peterson, who a lot of people were very high on just a year ago, fell off the map kind of a little bit. And maybe Peterson's a guy that Toronto could go after. I mean, that's another. But to me, if you're going to go Cal Peterson or Campbell, you're really in like the 6, 1/2 dozen the other. Why not go with the person you know? Like, I feel like you're in the same boat. Like, I feel like Peterson could be as good as Campbell was this year. Campbell could be better than Peterson. They're very similar to me in a lot of ways.
Well, but you could just keep them both too. You only got one more year.
Right. Why not? Why not just?
I mean, I think it's important to the Kings that they make the playoffs 2 consecutive years. So.
Yeah, and that's hard to do. It's hard to do it for a team that's on the bubble like that. You know, they're not a guarantee any year. What's the city like right now, Karen, with the draft? I mean, I was curious about, you know, I'm always fun when the circus comes to town kind of thing, you know.
Well, you know, with remote working, I can't say that I've been downtown so far. But I'm going into the office tomorrow, so I'll be able to tell you. But I do expect that there's a lot of people around. Yeah, you've got like Upper Deck was already saying that they're all around town riding the Upper Deck bus, giving giveaways for draft and all that. But yeah, you can see on Twitter that the media is slowly but surely descending upon Montreal.
Are tickets hard to come by for this event?
Sorry?
Are tickets hard to come by, or is it sold out, or?
Yeah, well, they did release a limited number of tickets this morning, and they sold out in like 2 minutes. So,
well, that is why you have the draft in Canada. I'll say that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Montreal, anything Canadians related will sell out.
But I just like in Canada in general, like I can't remember like a run on tickets like that for any draft in the US.
And the fans will know the players. Like that's the greatest part of it. You know, like you're having this in Philadelphia or even Detroit. You know, once you get beyond the 5th player, everybody's politely clapping. They don't know who you're taking.
Oh yeah.
And Montreal, they're going to know all these players.
Yeah.
So so it's much better when it's in Montreal.
Oh, it's much better. And now is the second day of the draft also? Are tickets available for that, or is that?
There's some for that remaining, not a lot, but some.
That's kind of crazy.
That were released this morning. They're still there, but.
That to me, because the second day of the draft, the NHL draft, I've been there, covered it in person. You've done the thing. It's like the second day of the NHL draft to me is watching paint dry, for fans for the most part. Like I just find it almost unbearable. Like and I'm a hockey writer. It's my job. You know, I just find it almost unbearable because it just. I mean, I'm not a prospects guy, so if you're a prospect guy, of course, this is your thing, but. Kevin, what are your thoughts on that? Like the second day?
Well, what I was going to say is Steve Eisman called the second day of the draft a death march. That's what he called it. He said he would rather it be remote.
Yeah,
where he's just in his little office he said there's too many distractions. And he said, you know, you're there with other general managers, but you're texting a guy that's one table away. You know, like you're not, you don't get up to go, you know, talk to him.
Right.
Do all that. And here's the other thing. Yeah. See, the reason why Montreal fans haven't sold it out yet is they're sophisticated enough to know when you're picking in the 3rd round, there's only an 8% chance that guy's going to make it. Yeah, they know that. They understand that. You know what I mean? So that's why, you know, they'll start filing out. Maybe actually I'm exaggerating. Probably about the 4th round they'll start filing.
Yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, it's going to because it really gets. It gets really hard to deal with. Like it just, and you know, like you say, I know I talked to somebody else who was really got to love the remote drafts. They're like just.
Well, if you think about it from their perspective, you know, it's not you don't have the buzz of the crowd. You can hear yourself. You know, you're not getting those box lunches. You're having a caterer bring in stuff for the boys. And,
and you can talk freely, you know, in your room. Like you can just yell at each other. You're like, no, we shouldn't take that guy. You know, like
for sure. And
table.
You don't have to bring your coach in because he adds nothing. You know, he's window dressing. He just shakes the hands of the new guys. You know, that's the other thing. A lot of people don't understand in America. You know, in the NFL and even in the NBA, the coaches are involved in the draft. Because the player is immediate. there's impact. So you're talking to the coach about, you want me to bring a power forward in for my NBA team, or do you want me to get a right guard for my NFL team? And the NHL, half the time, they don't even know the prospects. Tell me about the guy when he's about to enter my team is basically what they say. So.
Oh, I know. I mean, yeah, and I'm often corresponding with Russ during the draft or what have you, and Russ, who this is his job and knows prospects as well as anybody I know, will be the same by the third or fourth round. He's like, yeah, I don't know, I haven't heard of that guy. It's how it goes because these guys have so many scouts out there in so many different places.
Right.
It's just
I've always been wondering.
Right, I gotta go, guys, because the other job is calling.
Thank you so much.
But thanks for having me, and speak to you soon.
We'll talk soon. Thanks so much, Karen.
Bye.
But I've had this discussion before, and I hate to suggest this because I love the scouts. Usually they're in the press box, but I often wonder with the millions of dollars that's spent on scouting, if you had the old NFL style where 6 or 8 teams paid for 3 or 4 scouts to rate players. And then you have the central scouting doing a list. And then, you got all the other scouting agencies. And then you just did a consensus. Well, only the first round is there a high probability of the guy making it. Once you get into the second round, you're into the 25% range. And once you get in the third round, you're into single digits. So with all the millions of dollars, and, as I pointed out the other day, I wrote it, there's less, we're getting less than one, we're getting less than 2 players per team every draft here. Right. Like we're getting somewhere between 45 and 55 players out of every draft. So that's less than, if you double the teams, that would be 64 picks we would need for 2 per team. We're not getting that. We've never had 60 players. And I define making the NHL as having played 200 games.
I think 200 games is a really good really good benchmark. Yeah. I mean,
would they be better off? And could you do as well? If you took Central Scouting's list and you took all the other lists you could find and just went in there, just you alone at one table, you'll be the 33rd team. And, we'll just put you in the lottery and you'll draft somewhere between 1 and 32. It's a draw. I mean, it'd be great to figure out, whether that's worth it, all that, and see how I do.
That would be a fun thing to do, actually, one year with us. Like, we could sit there, we could each say, okay, we're all picking, like, I don't know, we'll pretend we're just one team, or just not even a team, just like we would all pick 6th every round or something like that, and write it down, and like 2 years later,
keep track of it for years, and then who would we have after 3 years?
Right. Who would make it? Like, how many people did we get?
We would get 2. We would, submit like before the 2 free agents that we'd want to sign.
Right.
And then we would just submit that. And then if there was a group of us, like if we did the 4 people from Hockey Buzz, we each submit 2 guys we want to sign, and whoever got the most votes, those 2, we would pay for those guys, and they would be our guys. And we would see what that team looks like in 5 years.
Let's do this. Let me put that out to Mike and Russ and see what if we can do for the we could figure out something even for the draft. We can just say take 3 guys that aren't named Wright or Slafkovsky. You know what I mean? Just like take those guys off the table for a second, or something like that, or what have you, and just see if you let's just say we're going to pick 10th or 11th.
Right after the 10th pick, we got to make our pick.
I like that. Let's do that. That would be good.
So that means in the second round we would go 43rd.
Right.
And the third round we would be 76, 87th. And then we had the 87, so 89, 129. Then we would be 140. So
we do like 4 rounds. I like this.
Well, I think that we'd have to go more because we're going to need to fill out a roster. So, I mean, we're going to have 50 contracts.
That's a good point. So, I like this. All right.
Although, I'm going to be harsh. I'm going to want to cut the guys that are 5th rounds.
Right. That's the issue, right? So we'll have to work out the details.
We're going to have to strategize because, if we pick, for example, college-bound players, we have longer to look at them.
That's true.
And Europeans, we have longer to look at them. If we take juniors, we got to decide within 2 years whether we want those cats. you know. So.
I like it. It's like a hockey pool, but not just in terms of just. I like it though. I think that's really Let's work on this.
Well, you just think like we all should do our own teams.
I agree.
Like we should all should pick the 11th draft. We should all submit to you after the 10th draft. When it comes time at 11, we just send as you keep track of each of our individual teams, and then at free agent times we have to submit 2 free agents that we're going to buy, and then those guys are going to be subtracted from our salary cap. So
I like it.
Yeah, so we'll have to do that.
Let's do it. Let's make that. Let me get on this and figure out a way to actually organize it.
Well, we could even hold an expansion draft if we wanted to.
That's what I was thinking too. Like, how can we fill out the rest of our roster? An expansion draft is a good idea. Like,
I mean, we could we do just what they did, where we could, the 9 players that we just decide which guys are protected, and then we could take from one of those. So could be fun.
I think that's a great idea. We're gonna have to make this work. I'm gonna get my intern on this because I got an intern today who starts. This is a perfect project for them to organize this together. All right, so we have there is a rumor flying around out there about the Penguins and Letang getting close now to a deal. $8 million, 3 years, $8 million a year for 3 years. 3-year deal.
I think that's true. That makes sense. He wanted to be paid. He deserved to be paid. He was underpaid, unlike Malkin. Malkin was making more money than Crosby. Malkin was getting paid real money. Letang has been underpaid for the quality of defenseman he's been.
Right.
3 years is not unreasonable. He's 35 years old. I get it. It's a little bit scary, but last year he was a high-level defenseman. And if you're going to go for it all, you can't do it without Letang. Imagine trying to fill that hole if they can't sign him. So,
imagine that. And
they have the money. They have money set aside for Malkin and Malkin and Letang. So now I wonder. And this is a question for you, Ak. Does this set a bar for Malkin? If Letang's at 8, can we get Malkin for 8?
You can get Malkin for 8. Yeah. And I don't think Malkin's worth 8. Like, I think Letang's worth more. And I think that
at this stage in their career,
I
wouldn't disagree, but I think I might pay Malkin.
You might pay Malkin the 8
because I said going in that I thought it would cost between $14 and $16 million for both of them.
Yeah.
So now it's at the high level, but you're already publicly said, we're not rebuilding, we're not resetting, we're all in. We're going to try to win. Can you do that without Malkin and Letang? I think not.
No. Yeah. I mean, it depends, I guess, who you could replace Malkin with. Like, if you were to replace Malkin with Giroux, what happens? Does that? Would you rather and you can get Giroux for less than 8. So the concept
can you get Giroux for less than 8?
I believe so. I think Giroux will be 6. That's my prediction. I don't know. That's just my prediction. I could be wrong, but I don't think he's going to be.
Well, I definitely could be wrong because I certainly didn't think Fiala was going to get 7.9. So,
but that Fiala also did set the bar, so that's true. I mean, and a lot of people didn't think that, and a lot of people were upset about that because of what that means moving forward for everybody else. If Fiala is 7.9, there's no point in this flat cap because what's going to happen, to where this really screws people is not the top guys who are going to get their money, but but it's the middle range guys who are going to lose money because there's not going to be anything left for anybody in the middle.
Yeah, well, the middle class always takes it in the shoulder.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. I've told this story before, but I'm going to retell it because I think it's so telling about what it's like to be the Penguins and the phenomena of Crosby - Malkin. So Jim Rutherford told me this story of he had to call Mike Sullivan one summer. I think it was right after they won the second Stanley Cup. And he said, Mike, there's going to have to be changes. And I just wanted to make you aware of it. I didn't want you to be caught off guard. I'm going to have to move some guys out. And they're guys that have been vital to us. But, it's salary cap. You know how it works. You've been around the block before. But I'm going to have to move. I don't remember who the players were, to be honest with you. But they were players that, were significant assets. Right. And he said, Mike listened very carefully. And he said, And when he was all done, I was waiting for him to come down. And he goes, do I still have Crosby and Malkin? And Tim Rutherford says, well, yeah, you got Crosby and Malkin. He says, well, then I'm not going to worry about it. So, and, I mean, even though it was a kind of a moment of levity for the two men who were at the heart of trying to compete, I think it's really telling, and that is the comfort level that comes from having two elite centermen who both, you have one guy that never, ever, ever stops competing. Right. And then you have another guy that's just gifted offensively.
Right.
And, creates points. And, once you're starting with those two, the rest you can fill in. Now, I would add that Letang, is just as valuable. But,
he is just as valuable to them right now. And the transition game is, those guys are both receivers that need a quarterback to get them the ball, Letang's the quarterback.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
And you need to get the quarterback to get you the ball. And Letang does that. He sets them up, he gets them moving, gets the all offense moving forward all the time. He's usually important. And there's a lot of interest in Letang out there, if he does. So I think that
for sure. Yeah.
Where Malkin's injuries have soured him a bit, people are a little bit scared about that. So that's where
I think that analysis is right on. I think both elements are true. I think Letang right now is the more desired property. People have taken note, GMs around the league, that, hey, Malkin's been hurt each of the last couple of seasons. And, he's playing at a high level, but, the knee injury was, Crosby had a kind of a funny comment. We weren't actually talking about Letang, but we were talking about Corsi and Crosby's interest in it or lack thereof. And he was talking about, he goes, well, let me tell you this way. He says, it's happened to me many times when I jump over the boards, I get on the ice, Letang is behind the net, he takes the puck, he starts up ice, he cuts across the blue line. All of a sudden he's got speed now and he's really moving. He's got the puck. He's really, really going now. He's down deep in their zone. He goes all the way around the net. He comes out. We're all in the zone. He fires a shot on goal. We've been on the ice 35 seconds. So the puck goes on the goal. And we turn around, we skate to the bench, and he said, I'm +1 on Corsi. He said, I haven't touched the puck. I think Letang hasn't thought about giving me the puck.
That's awesome.
But then he kind of laughed and winked at me, and we both, kind of shared a moment. But what he was exalting Letang's ability, but also kind of pointing out that sometimes, a plus Corsi really isn't all that meaningful to a guy you don't even contribute, and you can.
Well, it's so funny. Like even the modern stats can be looked at in all different sorts of ways. It's so funny. It's like there's no such thing as a perfect stat, right? But there you have it. Well, it's a good show, Kevin. Thank you so much. We'll be back again tomorrow. Check out for the times. It'll be in the morning. I just gotta find out when it works for Mike and Russ tomorrow, because we want to talk about Russ about draft, of course. And then tomorrow night we got the draft, so that'll be fun.
One thing for everyone, I am doing a mock draft for Hockey Buzz. I'll have it up in about an hour or so.
Fantastic.
So anyway, you have that up in my comments.
Perfect. Yep, I'll be posting that. I'll pop that right into my section when we get there, when it gets out there, because that's going to be something. And our trade rumor tracker launches later this evening, so it's always fun. Everybody likes that. So folks, remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you all tomorrow. Happy draft eve, everyone. See you then.